What is going on, peeps? Okay, so there's a little bit of activity going on over in Iraq, okay? And we're going to get into that in just a couple of seconds. But as you guys know, the holiday that is coming up for Iraq is the Eid al And so this is usually the holiday of prosperity, if I remember correctly. So let's hope that this particular year does bring them the joy that they are looking for on this fine holiday, and as well as for the rest of us. Okay. So let's kind of get into what's going on in the news. Okay, so the financial advisor to the prime minister, May's salaries were borrowed from Iraq banks. And June's salaries will be borrowed from our citizens with interest. Wow, you got to love that. So basically, what this article is, it's talking about the fact that, look, what they have going on is right now at the current rate of oil. This is what they're talking about. The outcome of our sales of oil ranges between $24 and $25 per barrel, meaning that the monthly revenues amount to 1.5 trillion dinars, to which other revenues are added. We're talking about non-oil revenues, such as taxes and customs, about 200 billion dinars. Noting that our revenues, the monthly oil and non-oil amounts to less than 2 trillion Iraqi dinars, regardless of the requirements. So what they need, what they're saying is they need $7 trillion or 7 trillion dinars per month to cover all expenses. So if they're calculating this with oil at a range of $24 to $25 per barrel, once it starts to increase, there'll be less stress on these expenses. So they've already borrowed money for the month of May, but what they're saying is something very interesting that caught my attention. As you know, everything is popping off in June. I think it's interesting that they're saying that the next batch, so May will be covered by the banks, but June's will be borrowed from our citizens. Very, very, very interesting. Okay. He pointed out the emergency committee to study the possibility of legislation, the federal budget law for the remainder of the fiscal year. But in the event that the budget is not legislated, the government will issue the final accounts with a law called the status quo to clarify revenues and expenditures for the year in 2020. So you guys remember they spoke about this, and that is this 2020 they're going to have a bi-yearly budget. So there's going to be two of them. One covers whatever has happened here in the first year that they're just getting, or first half of the year that they're just getting by, and the second one obviously is going to take place the second half of the year, which just happens to be around the same time, June. Okay, so we will see, because this is very interesting. I noticed that almost everything they're doing, meetings, agreements, trade agreements, these budgets are all popping off right around June time. So does that mean anything? I don't know, but it does sound pretty exciting. And here we go again. The Iraq Stock Exchange announces the date for the resumption of its sessions. And yes, I know you guys heard from another person. Well, he got it wrong the first time, but maybe he'll get it right this second time. That when it reopens, it might have a rate change. We'll see once again. We'll see. So the Iraq Stock Exchange announced on Sunday that it will reorganize 5 sessions per week after the ELOT, indicating that for its first session will be on Sunday the 31st. So it's a week from today. Okay, so a week from today, they will resume. Let's see if those new rate changes have been applied, as some people are alluding to. The market said in a statement previously to the news, the market will recognize 5 sessions per week. Basically, they're open up 5 days a week as normal. So right after the holiday, the stock exchange will be up and running again. Okay, so they go on here to tell you a little bit of history. That's noteworthy that the Iraq Stock Exchange was established in 2004 and was previously dependent on manual trading. Okay, manual trading. In April 2009, electronic trading was approved by some companies, and electronic trading began for the companies registered in the year 2010, and 104 companies affiliated to 8 sectors: banking, industrial, hotel, tourism, agriculture. So anyways, I got stock in the Iraqi stock exchange. So yeah, I know these different industries, and their stock exchange is much more easier to monitor than our stock exchange, as you can imagine. It makes it very easy for me to analyze the Iraqi stock market. I could tell you one of their biggest companies is a cement company. Obviously, as they start to get back into reconstruction and rebuilding their infrastructure, it's even going to get bigger. Okay, so yeah, and then of course the hotel chains will also be a biggie once they start opening up and people come in from around the world to help rebuild Iraq. You're going to see a lot of these people and a lot of companies staying over at these Iraqi hotels. Okay, so 4 files carried by Al-Qadimi's envoy during the visit to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. What are they? That's a good question. We know one of them has something to do with the economy. The financial advisor on Sunday identified the appearance of Saleh. The files presented by the Prime Minister's envoy and the Minister of Finance during his visit to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Again, I stressed this last time in our last video. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait definitely are 2 big money heavy hitters that Iraq needs to build relationships with them. Now, I know that Trump has pushed Saudi Arabia. I don't think he had to push them now, to be quite honest, about strengthening the relationship and helping Iraq rebuild. We know that he asked Saudi Arabia along with Iraq to rebuild their biggest shipping harbor. It needed to be redone altogether. So they have been working on that since last year. I'm not sure where they stand now, but it is going to be the biggest shipping yard that the Middle East has over in that area. And so that is a key to the Middle East being able to open up trade to the rest of the world. So it's very, very important. So anyways, I'm wondering if in these 2 files, some of that kind of talk is taking place. So the Minister of Finance briefed the officials in the 2 sister countries, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, about the financial difficulties that Iraq is currently facing due to the Rona pandemic, the closure of the global economy, and the deterioration of the oil market. So let's just chop off on all these real quick. As people come out of quarantine, we're starting to realize that we've been in house arrest for almost the entire spring of 2020 for Nathan. No, not Nathan like in the guy I talked to. That's just a slang term we use over here in California as like saying nothing. Okay? So for no reason whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. People would have died, but it would have been no less than any other sickness that is out there, despite what the news is telling you. We're starting to learn, since I work in the healthcare industry, we're starting to learn that most of the numbers were exaggerated. Okay, and there's been ongoing jokes about it. So, nonetheless, as we come out of quarantine, more people will travel. This means oil consumption will increase. We are opening now, so look forward to that. Okay, as well as so you don't have to worry about the pandemic as people get out and about. Not going to worry about oil because that's going to start to increase, and the economy will open up globally. So all 3 of those concerns should be, changing over these next couple of months. We will see. He added that the visit to the Prime Minister's envoy aims to strengthen the bonds of good neighbor lines with all countries of the regional environment, especially those countries from Iraq's OPEC partnership. Yeah, that should be very interesting. So look, we are curious to see what's happening. I told you in the meeting that's happening in June, it's not just the IMF, it's not just the United Nations, and it's not just the United States. Saudi Arabia is going to be there too. So let's see if all of a sudden we don't find out that Kuwait becomes a part of it as well. He pointed out the Iraq delegation raised during its visit to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait files of cooperation in the areas of energy, financial cooperation, and the areas of trade and investment. These are all the words we love to hear. These are the types of interests we want to hear about. All right, so it looks like Iraq is doing what they need to do to just get above water. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so basically this article just says, look, it's a little bit different between our boy here, Al-Kadhimi, being the prime minister versus the last one, which is Mahdi. Mahdi would switch his phones off at night, but Al-Kadhimi seems to be up at all hours of the night talking to anybody and everybody that will work with him on helping Iraq get back on its feet. He's recently taken a lot of phone calls from some very important people, including the French president, Macron, Egyptian president, the Iranian president, the Saudi Arabia prince, as well as the United States, all wishing the prime minister wellness, happiness, and good health. And we'll see how this all works out. But we know also, I could tell you this, that we are working currently on some new trade agreements with Iraq. That's Trump is willing to work with them under some certain circumstances. So again, it looks like Iraq is finally going in a direction we wanted to go into. I know a lot of us have been waiting for this. Some of you guys for over 16 years. Holy schmoly, man. Here's our favorite all-star on the United Nations team. It's Black Star. Congratulates Idala. Iraq faces multiple challenges that have been exacerbated by the corona. So there she is. For those of you who don't know who we're talking about, this is the liaison from the United Nations. She keeps track of what's going on in Iraq. Her word is gold when it comes to the United Nations. So we need to make sure that she's constantly smiling, just like she is in this video. It may not look like a real smile, but that's a part smile based on where Iraq is right now. We need her to be very, very happy, okay, for her to get the United Nations to allow the Iraqi currency to be recognized internationally. This is the person that will make it happen. I told you she's been spending a lot of time in Kurdistan with Barzani. This is important that they make sure that the relationship between the Kurds and Iraq are very, very smooth, as well as other country. So there she is. She's just wishing everybody a happy holiday. She says that they face multiple challenges, but feels like they are up for the challenge and should squash it fairly quickly. This is good news. This is actually very, very good news. Out of all the stuff out there, I hear out there about what is good news and what looks like is the final straw that will make the trigger, pull the trigger on the rate change. This is the one that, to me, is biggest of them all. You know, you have to understand who this woman is and her relationship and her role with the United Nations and what that means for Iraq. All right, you guys, so that's where we are right now. Again, every day we continue to hear more and more good news about Iraq. We haven't seen any setbacks. Everything seems to not just be moving forward, but plowing forward. All right, so feel very good about your Iraqi dinar investment. All right, seriously, 2020 is going to be our year. All right, that's what it's definitely shaping out to be. All right, you guys, I hope that works out for you. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, because it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. Thank you.